7. John Doe, the antagonist of 7, is not simply a serial killer but a self-appointed moral judge who believes humanity is irredeemably sinful. His murders are not impulsive acts of violence. They are carefully constructed components of a single, rigid design. Each killing represents one of the 7 deadly sins, turning human lives into symbols meant to deliver what Doe considers a necessary lesson. From the beginning, Resistance misunderstands the nature of the threat. The detectives are trying to stop a murderer, while Doe is executing a completed argument. Every victim is selected with intention. Gluttony is punished through forced excess, greed through self-mutilation, sloth through prolonged suffering. These crimes are not meant to be solved quickly or prevented easily. They are meant to be discovered after the fact, ensuring that intervention always arrives too late. Law enforcement believes progress is being made because clues are found, but each clue is merely confirmation that Doe is exactly where he planned to be. John Doe does not attempt to escape because escape is irrelevant. When he turns himself in, bloodied and calm, Resistance believes it has finally won. The killer is in custody. The violence should be over. In reality, the plan has already advanced beyond the point where arrest matters. Doe's surrender is not a failure. It is the transition into the final stage. The true defeat of Resistance occurs in the desert. Doe reveals that he has murdered Detective Mill's wife, not out of convenience, but out of envy. This confession is deliberate provocation. Doe understands human psychology well enough to know that Mills will not endure this revelation without reacting. By provoking Mills into killing him in a moment of rage, Doe completes the final sin, wrath. The system meant to stop him becomes the tool that fulfills his design. John Doe dies, but his victory is absolute. The murders are completed exactly as intended. Mills is psychologically destroyed and permanently complicit in the plan. The message Doe wanted to send is delivered in full, and no legal victory can undo it. Resistance does not fail because it is weak. It fails because acting against John Doe is the final requirement for his success. Animal Farm. In Animal Farm, Resistance begins as a genuine uprising. The animals overthrow their human owner in the name of equality, freedom, and shared labor. Led by the pigs, particularly Napoleon, the rebellion promises a new system where no animal exploits another. At first, the resistance appears successful. The humans are gone, the farm is reclaimed, and the animals believe they are finally in control of their own destiny. The failure begins quietly, which is usually how these things go. The pigs position themselves as planners and thinkers, claiming intellectual necessity rather than authority. While the other animals perform physical labor, the pigs take on administrative roles. This division is presented as practical, not political. Resistance doesn't collapse through violence at first. It dissolves through convenience. Napoleon consolidates power using 2 tools, propaganda and fear. Squealer, the pig's mouthpiece, rewrites reality in real time, explaining away contradictions and reframing exploitation as sacrifice. When words fail, Napoleon deploys his trained dogs to silence dissent. Debate disappears. Memory becomes unreliable. Any animal who questions the pigs is reminded that the humans might return, which is apparently worse than whatever is currently happening. The commandments of the revolution are gradually altered to justify the pigs' behavior. Equality becomes conditional. Privilege becomes necessary. The animals notice the changes but lack the education, confidence, or unity to challenge them. Resistance technically still exists, but it has no structure, no leadership, and no language left to articulate itself. Boxer, the most loyal and hard-working animal, embodies this failure perfectly. His response to exploitation is to work harder, which is rewarded by being sold to the glue factory once he is no longer useful. By the end of the story, the pigs walk upright, drink alcohol, and socialize with humans. The animals outside can no longer distinguish pig from man. The revolution has not just failed, it has succeeded in recreating the exact system it was meant to destroy. Resistance doesn't lose in a dramatic showdown. It wins, then rots, and finally becomes indistinguishable from the enemy it overthrew. The Omen. In the Omen, Resistance fails because it starts too late and targets the wrong thing. Damien Thorne is not a villain plotting in secret or a tyrant building an empire. He is a child, outwardly ordinary, quietly protected by circumstance and disbelief. His true identity as the Antichrist is concealed behind innocence, wealth, and political power. By the time Resistance begins to take shape, Damien is already untouchable. The deaths surrounding Damien are not random accidents. They are acts of protection carried out by unseen, fanatically loyal forces. Anyone who gets too close to the truth is removed with clinical efficiency. Priests die before delivering warnings. Investigators perish before connecting evidence. Resistance exists only in fragments, each one isolated and eliminated before it can form momentum. Robert Thorne, Damien's adoptive father, represents the final attempt at stopping what is coming. As the truth becomes undeniable, Resistance shifts from disbelief to desperation. Robert learns that Damien is not human, that his existence fulfills biblical prophecy, and that conventional solutions are useless. The world cannot arrest or reason with the Antichrist. The only way to stop him is through an act of faith-driven violence using sacred daggers, a solution so extreme it borders on insanity, conveniently making it easier for others to stop Robert instead. Resistance collapses at the exact moment it requires commitment. When Robert attempts to kill Damien, he is shot by authorities who believe they are preventing a murder. From the outside, Resistance looks like madness. From the inside, it is the last chance humanity has. Damien survives not because he overpowers anyone, but because the system meant to protect children, law and order, intervenes on his behalf. The final image confirms the total failure of resistance. Damien stands at his father's funeral holding hands with the President of the United States, smiling faintly as he looks directly at the camera. Evil is no longer hiding. It is integrated into power, protected by legitimacy, and poised to inherit the world. Resistance doesn't just fail. It unknowingly ensures the prophecy continues. The lottery. In Shirley Jackson's The Lottery, resistance fails not because it is crushed, but because it never meaningfully forms. The story presents a small-town gathering for an annual tradition that appears ordinary, even cheerful. Families assemble, children collect stones, and neighbors exchange casual conversation. Nothing about the scene suggests danger, which is precisely the point. Violence does not arrive suddenly. It is embedded in routine. The lottery itself is treated as an unquestionable civic duty. No one fully remembers why it exists or when it began, only that it has always been done. This history by habit replaces moral reasoning. Any attempt to question the ritual is dismissed as foolish, disruptive, or untraditional. Resistance is socially discouraged long before it becomes morally necessary. When Tessie Hutchinson is elected, the illusion collapses, but only for her. She protests that the drawing was unfair, that the process was rushed, that something must be wrong. Her objections are procedural, not ideological. She does not reject the lottery itself until it condemns her personally. By then, resistance has no traction. The rules are already accepted, the crowd is already committed, and the stones are already in hand. What makes this ending especially bleak is the collective participation. Friends, neighbors, and even family members carry out the execution without hesitation. Children are not shielded from the act. They are trained into it. Responsibility is diffused so thoroughly that no single person feels accountable. Violence becomes a shared obligation, not a personal crime. The lottery continues because conformity replaces conscience. No villain enforces the ritual. No authority figure demands compliance. The town sustains the system voluntarily, year after year, because challenging it would require acknowledging complicity. Resistance fails because tradition is more comfortable than morality, and questioning it would mean admitting that everyone is responsible. Watchmen. In Watchmen, resistance does not fail because it is too weak or too late. It fails because it succeeds, and then refuses to act. Adrian Veidt, operating under the name Ozymandias, is not hiding in the shadows waiting to be stopped. He is planning openly, patiently, and with complete confidence that no one will intervene in time. His goal is not conquest or domination, but forced unity. He believes humanity will inevitably destroy itself unless it is terrified into cooperation. The world of Watchmen exists on the brink of nuclear war. Political tensions are irreversible, diplomacy has failed, and the presence of superpowered beings has only accelerated global instability. Ozymandias concludes that resistance to this outcome is futile unless the rules of the world are rewritten. His solution is mass deception on an unprecedented scale, fabricate an alien invasion that kills millions in a single moment, convincing the world that humanity now faces a common external enemy. When the heroes uncover his plan, they assume they are racing against time. This is where resistance usually succeeds. This time, it doesn't. Ozymandias calmly informs them that the attack already happened 35 minutes ago. New York is already destroyed. The psychic shockwave has already killed millions. The world has already changed. Resistance arrives precisely on schedule, after it no longer matters. The moral collapse comes next. The truth is exposed, but acting on it would undo the fragile peace Ozymandias has created. Revealing the lie would reignite global conflict and render the sacrifice meaningless. One by one, the heroes realize that stopping Ozymandias now would cost more lives than it would save. Resistance becomes a theoretical option, not a practical one. Ozymandias walks away unpunished. His plan works. Nations unite. Nuclear war is averted. The world survives, but only by accepting a lie built on mass murder. Resistance doesn't fail because it loses. It fails because it decides that the cost of truth is too high. The villain wins, not by overpowering his opponents, but by making resistance morally indefensible. The Dark Knight. In The Dark Knight, resistance technically succeeds. Gotham is not destroyed, the Joker is captured, and mass chaos is narrowly avoided. This is why the ending is unsettling. The Joker never intended to win in any traditional sense. He is not trying to rule Gotham, steal its wealth, or escape justice. His goal is simpler and far more damaging, to prove that moral order is fragile, conditional, and easily compromised. The Joker targets symbols, not systems. His primary focus is Harvey Dent, Gotham's district attorney and public proof that the city can fight crime without becoming corrupt. Dent represents the idea that justice can function cleanly within a broken city. The Joker does not attack him physically at first. He dismantles him psychologically. By orchestrating Rachel Dawes' death and disfiguring Dent, the Joker transforms Gotham's symbol of hope into an embodiment of vengeance. Resistance believes it has stopped the Joker when he is arrested. In reality, the transformation of Harvey Dent is the actual objective. Dent's descent into Two-Face validates the Joker's worldview. Given enough pressure, even the most principled individual will abandon morality. The city survives, but its moral anchor does not. Resistance wins the battle and loses the meaning behind it. Batman's response completes the Joker's victory. To preserve Gotham's belief in justice, Batman takes responsibility for Dent's crimes. The truth is deliberately buried. Gotham is allowed to believe in a lie because the truth would destroy public faith. Order is maintained, but only by corrupting it at the foundation. Justice is preserved by abandoning honesty, which is exactly the compromise the Joker wanted to expose. The Joker proves that chaos does not need to win outright to succeed. It only needs to force good people to betray their principles to keep the system running. Gotham stands, but its moral framework is permanently compromised. Resistance survives, but it survives by proving the villain right. Nurse Ratched. In One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, resistance fails because it is allowed just enough freedom to be identified and neutralized. Nurse Ratched does not rule through overt violence or chaos. She maintains control through routine, procedure, and psychological pressure. Her authority is institutional, which makes it appear reasonable, therapeutic, and necessary, even when it is deeply abusive. The patients in the ward are already conditioned to obey. Many are not committed by force, but by fear of the outside world, which Nurse Ratched subtly reinforces. Her power lies in exploiting vulnerability. She humiliates patients publicly, withholds privileges, and frames punishment as treatment. Every act of control is justified as being for their own good, making resistance appear irrational or dangerous. Randall McMurphy's arrival introduces the illusion of rebellion. He challenges rules, mocks authority, and encourages the other patients to assert themselves. For a brief moment, resistance feels contagious. Laughter returns. Confidence grows. However, McMurphy misunderstands the nature of the enemy. He believes Nurse Ratched is an individual tyrant who can be embarrassed, outwitted, or broken. In reality, she is an extension of the system itself. Nurse Ratched responds not with escalation, but with patience. She isolates McMurphy, documents his behavior, and waits for institutional mechanisms to do the work. When defiance becomes disruptive rather than symbolic, she deploys sanctioned punishment, electroshock therapy, and ultimately lobotomy. The rebellion is not crushed publicly. It is erased quietly. McMurphy's fate sends a clear message to the remaining patients. Resistance leads not to freedom, but to obliteration of the self. The ward returns to order, unchanged and unchallenged. Nurse Ratched retains her authority, and the system continues operating exactly as designed. The final act of mercy comes not from the institution, but from another patient who ends McMurphy's life to spare him from existing as an empty shell. Resistance fails because it targets the wrong level of power. Nurse Ratched does not need to win. The system wins for her. Big Brother. In 1984, Big Brother is not a ruler in the traditional sense. He is a symbol, an ever-present face representing the party's total and permanent authority. There is no palace to storm and no leader to overthrow, because Big Brother may not even exist as a real person. That ambiguity is intentional. Resistance cannot target what has no physical form. The party's power comes from absolute control over information, language, and perception. Constant surveillance ensures that citizens are watched at all times, making privacy, and therefore genuine dissent, impossible. Thought crime is punished as severely as action, meaning rebellion rarely progresses beyond internal doubt. Even that doubt is dangerous. The system is designed to detect resistance at the moment it forms, not after it acts. Reality itself is unstable under the party's rule. History is rewritten daily so that the party is never wrong. Contradictions are not corrected, they are erased. Citizens are trained in doublethink, the ability to accept two opposing ideas as true without discomfort. When truth becomes flexible, resistance loses its most basic requirement, a shared understanding of what is real. You cannot organize against a lie if lies define reality. Winston Smith believes resistance is possible. He writes in secret, questions doctrine, and seeks emotional connection as a form of rebellion. What Winston does not understand is that the party allows this behavior to unfold. His rebellion is not a flaw in the system, and it is part of it. The party studies dissent, catalogs it, and waits for it to mature before intervening. Winston is not caught because he fails. He is caught because failure was always guaranteed. At the Ministry of Love, the party does not simply torture Winston into obedience. Obedience is insufficient. The goal is total psychological conversion. Through isolation, pain, and systematic dismantling of his beliefs, Winston is forced to abandon logic, memory, and loyalty to himself. The party does not want him silent. It wants him sincere. The final defeat occurs when Winston genuinely accepts the party's version of reality. He does not pretend to believe. He believes. When he comes to love Big Brother, resistance is not just defeated. It is retroactively erased. His past rebellion is rendered meaningless, reframed as confusion rather than defiance. Big Brother's victory is absolute because it goes beyond suppressing opposition. The party eliminates the very concept of resistance. By controlling truth, language, and identity, it ensures that rebellion is not crushed in a dramatic moment, but dissolved entirely. There is nothing left to fight, and no one left who remembers why they ever tried.